Thank you, Chair Schroer and committee members, for welcoming this army of survivors and advocates today. This is a historic hearing and so needed. I'm Elizabeth Phillips from Dallas, Texas, and a very reluctant expert on both of these bills. A special thank you to Senator Hudson for authoring SB 590 to prohibit the misuse of NDAs against child sexual abuse and trafficking victims. Thank you also for naming it Trey's Law, after my late brother, Trey Carlock. He was silenced to his grave by Carlock Ministries based in Taney County, the greater Branson area. The action you're taking here honors Trey and the countless survivors of child sexual abuse like him who didn't survive. I am also here to testify in favor of SB 589, which would eliminate Missouri's civil statute of limitations for child sexual abuse cases against institutions like Carlock, a statute this state has not modified since 1939. Trey's story speaks to both bills. They are intertwined, as my testimony and others here today will explain. My brother Trey endured a decade of grooming and sexual abuse by popular Carlock director Pete Newman. He's now in prison here in Jefferson City for 2 life terms plus 30 years. This was followed by a re-traumatizing civil litigation process that ended with a restrictive NDA. Then, in 2019, Trey's tragic suicide. Now that I've caught my breath, I'm trying to be his voice. Having a front row seat to my brother's suffering and death, I often say that Trey's journey of injustice had many layers and multiple perpetrators. First and foremost, I blame serial sex offender Pete Newman, with 57 known victims at the time of his sentencing in 2010, and estimates that his true victim count is in the hundreds or even thousands. Next, we have to look at Carlock, the institution. Since launching factsaboutcarlock.com in 2021, our survivor community has received hundreds of tips with allegations against more than 65 unique perpetrators associated with Carlock, with claims dating from 1958 to today. Joe White, who bought the camp from his parents in the 1970s and runs it to this day, promoted directors like Pete Newman, despite known sexual misconduct with children. Carlock must be held accountable for not implementing proper policies, for not firing Pete Newman after parents raised repeated red flags, for failure to consistently report his patterns of nudity with children to the authorities, and for lying to victims and everyone for decades. Instead, they are about to celebrate their centennial summer as they double down on their cover-up to preserve brand reputation. What helps them do that? NDAs. I have actually learned more about the extent of my brother's abuse and his death than I knew in his life due to the NDA Carlock put him under. Trey told a therapist, "They will always control me and I'll never be free," before he died by suicide at the age of 28. He called his settlement dollars blood money because taking that money in exchange for an NDA felt like a bribe. He needed those dollars for a lifetime of care, but it came at the cost of his voice and freedom. Trey hesitated even to tell his story in confidential settings like AA, for fear that Carlock would come after him again like they did by federally sanctioning an earlier John Doe. In 2021, survivors and their families coalesced around a petition asking Carlock to release victims from their NDAs, which quickly garnered around 30,000 signatures. Carlock's response? First, they declared they don't use NDAs. Then they admitted they do use NDAs, but only at the request of the plaintiffs. Another lie. Now they say they do use NDAs and they support survivors coming forward. However, their insurance companies may come after you if you disclose settlement terms. So we're not going to give Carlock any more chances to do the right thing. We're going to have to change the law. A lot of truth dies with people because of NDAs, and like a short statute of limitations on childhood sex crimes that only protects bad actors, which is contrary to public interest. To me, that is the point of Trey's Law and this hearing today: public safety, protecting children. My brother was forced by the state to file his civil lawsuit against Carlock before he was ready, in his early 20s. And opposing counsel's gaslighting and depositions eventually led him to a psychotic break. It's no exaggeration for me to claim that these issues are a matter of life and death. When you've survived a childhood crime, you should have the freedom to decide if and when you want to seek justice through the civil courts. Victims should have full control of their own narratives and the pace of their healing journey. Not an NDA and not a law in Missouri from the Prohibition era. For context, over 33 U.S. states and territories, including your neighbor Arkansas, have passed revival legislation for civil child sexual abuse cases because the argument is simple. Let victims of childhood crimes have access to civil courts, and then your civil courts will uncover hidden predators and the institutions that harbor them. The criminal justice system has its limits, but civil action can also lead to criminal accountability, which is what I think people who harm kids should face. Survivors have flown in from all over the country to testify, and you'll notice a pattern. The majority of child sexual abuse and trafficking victims do not disclose their abuse until much later in life. As Senator Hudson mentioned, it takes an average of 20 years for victims of child sexual abuse to come forward for the first time, if they ever do at all. You'll also learn that Missouri's draconian statute of limitations for both institutions and individual perpetrators is behind the rest of the country. Basically, if you're going to get raped in America, don't do it in Missouri. Your antiquated laws here attract child predators and organizations that have something to hide. We're ringing the alarm. It's also confusing to victims that you can sue your perpetrator up until the age of 31, but the institution responsible for your abuse and covering it up is only liable until you turn 26. This inconsistency in Missouri statute does not track with other states, and my guess is that the institutional component of the current statute has been driven by insurance and other lobbying groups more concerned about losing money than protecting life. I have a statement we can share with the committee by the largest insurer of YMCAs in the country, Redwoods Insurance Group, which stands with child sexual abuse survivors to pass bills like SB 589 all over the country. This call to action is also available on their website, along with an invitation for fellow insurers to join the good side of this fight. Redwoods even offers consulting services to peer companies that are confused about this problem and its solutions. The two bills Senator Hudson is presenting you today address gaps in Missouri's law that fail kids, and therefore all of us. Only you, as lawmakers, can prevent a story like Trey's, whether for Missourian kids or for those that come here for tourism, school, or recreation. There are Carlock victims from Hawaii to Haiti, New York to China, and all over the U.S. Yet this is my third session testifying before the Missouri legislature without anything passing the Senate or General Assembly. This is the first time a Senate committee has given these bills and the voices behind them the attention they deserve. So I'm here again to ask you to please remember Trey. I'm asking this legislature to pass Trey's law as an urgent matter of public safety and to give victims their voices back. And I'm also humbly pleading with you to not stop there. Please address the civil statute of limitations in Missouri for these survivors, so future victims aren't put on a clock they never even knew was ticking. Senate Bills 589 and 590, along with SJR 51, must pass this session to make progress on child protection and repair past injustices. Thank you, and with that, I'm prepared to take questions.
Thank you for your hard work on this and the strength needed to speak for your brother. Senator Brown.
I don't know if this was stated and I missed it. How long ago was it when you lost your brother?
He died in August 2019, almost 6 years ago.
Well, I know that just to come here and share your story, it takes a tremendous amount of strength and resilience. And I wanted to thank you for coming here and sharing that. Like I stated to a previous witness, just these personal stories, they are about the most impactful thing that could be brought before us. And I think that you sharing your story, I think, it definitely, tugs at my heartstrings, and I'm sure I could speak for many other people up here, so thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It comes at a high cost.
Senator May.
Yeah, I want to thank you, and I'm sorry about your brother, for sharing and all of you coming to tell your testimony, and I hope that we can do something and get it across the finish line, because it's just difficult when people have been victimized and when you're forcing them to tell that when they're still vulnerable and haven't gotten to a place of strength is very hard. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the senator for filing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Real briefly, this could come up from another expert. Do you have any statistics on how often kids are victimized, especially those that are going to these camps?
The latest research nationally shows that 1 in 8 American children will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. It's 1 in 5 if you include online abuse. I know the statistic in Texas where I live is 1 in 6. I don't think Missouri has prevalence data that's updated, but there may be subject matter experts behind me who can be more specific.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none.